Okay, very good. Welcome everyone to the January 12th, 2022 workshop. We've got a full agenda. I think first off, I'm going to move the agenda around a little bit because I know the next four items will move fairly quick, or the three of the four will move pretty quick. But we have Ms. Kimberly Min online with us. And Kimberly, we want to talk to you about tax increment financing.
Could anything sound more interesting?
Yes.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to your workshop. I'm Kimberly Min. Many of you may be familiar with some of the work that we've done together on Southfields, that I represent the town in connection with various bond and tax increment financing. We'll call them mechanisms at this point. And as I understand it, the town is interested in hearing a little bit about the mechanics and how it might work to consider a district-wide or a town-wide tax increment development district, and what would necessarily go into that, what the uses of that are, and as I understand it, just generally explore this potential given the large amount of development that's intended to take place within the town, or at least sort of slotted and going through, various stages of approval processes and development. Is that the right understanding?
Kimberly, you're pretty well spot on. I think a couple meetings ago, we had Chris Sheenan, and he's actually on the line. He gave a presentation on exactly what we're looking at. I think the board itself has a pretty good understanding of what this is, and we have some questions, but we'll let you tell us a little bit about it. But you're spot on. We have a lot of robust growth happening in Elkton right now. And we also recognize that I know some of the new assessments have came out, but with some of this construction that's coming out, I know we haven't benefited from that dollar amount yet that's going to be coming in.
Right.
So kind of my thought, I'll just tell you what I'm thinking is, does this give us another tool that we can put into our toolbox? One, can we do it town-wide to make it clear and concise? And if we never use it, is there any harm or foul? So those are kind of the three things that I want to touch base on. So go ahead. Sure. Does anyone from the board have any comments other than that?
Not beyond that, no.
Okay, fire away. Tell us a little bit.
Certainly. So first of all, you are spot on in characterizing a tax increment financing and development district as a tool in the toolbox. As you probably have known, just given your tenure with the town, is one of the things that a town is faced with when welcoming development is making sure that the public infrastructure is able to sustain that development in a way that doesn't cause pain to the existing residents, that doesn't cause, a cost structure that stresses the general budget and things like that. So having this tool, which is the perfect characterization, is one way to try to address some of those challenges that would otherwise be, dragging down the benefits, so to speak, of certain types of development within the municipality. So as a tool, what the town is able to do is establish a development district within its boundaries. It could be all of it. It could be part of it. It has to be contiguous. You do more than one, though I'm not sure that there's really any utility to that. I'm going to try to keep things as straightforward as possible, with the idea that if there are special circumstances that arise during the course of considering this, there are ways to manage and deal with that. So the way that development district is created, which you've already done in Southfields, and they can, by the way, overlap, is through a legislation. And that legislation simply draws the boundaries of what potentially would be the development district, or what would be the development district in case you're looking to introduce and use the tax increment that would be established. Also, by setting the development district, you'll be setting the baseline for what is considered, the original base, and then what is used to consider any increment. So the town is actually in a unique position because a lot of this development has not necessarily come online into the assessable base. The town would have the ability to legally utilize whatever increase there is in tax revenues as a tool in a tax increment financing, meaning you don't have to, but you're creating a large amount of space for there to be increment and monies that you could pledge in a special fund if you're intending in the future to finance any kind of public improvements. So creating the development district does not in any manner require you to ultimately engage in any financing. That is a separate action that would be done, and it can be done on an as-needed basis. It can be done on a fairly incremental basis. It can be done on a larger scale. There's so much flexibility that's associated with that, and probably its own kind of separate component of this conversation. And then, once that development district is created through legislation, the town has the ability to establish what's called a special fund. And what that does is the increment, meaning the additional amount of taxes that gets generated from this future development, is able to be directed to what we call a special fund. There are uses for what that fund can be designated for, including maybe sort of saving some money up for a future bond issuance or reserves or something like that. And then it can also be used for anything the town wants. So the town doesn't ever give up any kind of discretion over what it is these additional tax revenues that are being generated can be used for. So there really isn't a kind of a negative associated with establishing the development district and the associated special fund, because the town retains every level of discretion with regard to whether and how much you would finance anything and what you do with the additional increment that would otherwise and is payable to the town. So that's kind of the early intro, but I did get into some of the sequencing of the mechanics. What else can I answer for you?
What would be our next step? If we
It would
wanted-
be the kind of the drawing of the boundaries and the legislation, right? But if you recall with Southfields, there were two pieces of legislation. One was establishing the development district. You would do the same thing here. It would just be a bigger space. And like I said, you can even draw that line around the Southfields, because that is not a district that is creating tax increment. It's instead just specifically for special taxes. It's a different piece. So you're not precluded from otherwise getting the benefit of being able to utilize all those additional tax revenues from that particular project. And so you would draw those lines and then introduce legislation that would establish that development district. If you remember, the second piece of legislation that was introduced in connection with Southfields, and I'm using this as a benchmark because I know that you already went through that process, is the authorization to issue, indebtedness that would be repaid by this tax increment. But that's not necessarily something that has to happen right now. That can happen down the road. It could never happen. But you've at least created now the development district and set the original assessment base, which allows you to capture as much of the increase of assessments as possible and being able to use it to support future projects you might be looking to do and finance with tax increment bonds.
And once again, the tax increment has to be used for the good of the public, which means public infrastructure, flood control projects within the town.
There's actually a list in the statute that talks about what these funds can be used for. You are correct. The theme to work with in your mind is these are public improvements, meaning they are not intended to exclusively benefit any kind of private party. So there's actually a list of things that you can do. You can buy, you can lease, you can condemn or otherwise acquire properties within the district. You can also, remove improvements and do demolition. You can do surveys and studies, so you don't even actually have to build something. You can use some of these funds as, to try to imagine or decide what would be the appropriate thing to do. You can relocate businesses and residences. Now, look, this is a broad list of items that I imagine are maybe not being considered, but you can do within this list whatever you want. Install utilities. That's a big one, especially as we're talking about broadband and things like that are really designed and a utility to serve an expanded community. Construct parks and playgrounds. People love to see that, something like that on the list. And other needed improvements, including roads, kind of to or from and within the development district, parking, lighting. You can construct or rehabilitate buildings that are for governmental purpose. And, you can also use the funds for, just the financing costs associated with borrowing the money, if you choose to do so, to fund these types of things, so that that financing is not an economic burden, out of the general fund of the town. So you can kind of bake that into the transaction if you so choose. So, that's a pretty broad list. And as long as it's, with a straight face, benefiting the public, and I think there's a lot that can be done within those parameters, then they're able to be financed with bonds and repaid with this increase in assessment, which is the word we use as increment. So
based on what you just described, what we can use funding for, I know the town on a smaller scale operates and keeps a count of what they actually spend and what the budget goes in. Who and how does this money get audited, or how does it get looked over after all these large projects have been implemented?
So when you do the financing, you're actually going to be listing out what it is that you intend to do with the fund. So there's a pretty close tracking, so to speak. By the way, this doesn't need to be the only source of funds. You talk about your budget. Lots of municipalities may use this kind of financing for a portion of the cost, and maybe use some pay-go or pay as they go for other portions of the cost. So this is, again, a tool and doesn't necessarily need to be the only source. And then, once it gets utilized for the repayment of that indebtedness and that debt's being used, as you mentioned, for particular projects, then it just kind of falls back to the town to use in whatever manner it wants. And there's no accountability, for the specific use of those funds other than what's required by your financing documents.
And the last question is the time frame. If we have a certain time to use it, like 1 to 2 years or 3 to 5 years, or
no, once the development district is established, it exists. So, you could wait 2-3 years to decide to issue any financing. In the meantime, you're just building up what money is available to be pledged, and it increases the credit profile of the town and reduces the cost of borrowing. And so with that going on in the background, you could wait years to try. You're probably going to need it sooner rather than later if there is indeed this growth, but you can wait years to actually issue bonds to pay for these items. But once you actually issue the bonds to pay for these items, they typically want you to finish using the money within 3 years for tax purposes.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Kendra?
I'd like to get a list of the things that we can use it for, so we can see it in front of us on paper.
Sure. It's actually in the statute. And so I'll, send that over to Lewis and to Michelle so that they can distribute it to you, and including the statutory reference in case you want to take a look around to see if there's, anything else that you might have a question about.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, Lou. Do you have any questions or comments?
No. Thank you, Kimberly. We appreciate your service.
Oh, you're most welcome. As you can tell, I kind of nerd out on this stuff a little bit, and I really do enjoy working with towns and municipalities to try to accomplish, these important goals while still, limiting, I guess, the burden on the taxpayers, obviously.
Kimberly, do you need to be active in us starting to move forward with declaring our boundaries, or do we do that in-house?
So I personally do not draw the lines, but I would want to review the lines to make sure that there is the contiguity that's required, and to make sure that we're kind of squarely within the boundaries of the municipality and things like that. So, and then I would follow along with you in preparing the legislation to establish the district.
Perfect.
Right.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you very
Right.
much.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone. Please stay well. It was good to see all of you. And if there are any other follow-up questions, I am sure I will hear from Lewis. So,
One question I have,
Yeah.
we'll need to pass an ordinance declaring the development district. Do you
Yes.
have a model that we could utilize for this?
oh, yes. Mhm.
Okay, we will need that.
Yeah, please send that over to Lewis.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so it's usually kind of fact specific, so we can talk Lewis about like how that would come together. Typically, bond counsel, which would be me, would prepare something like that because of how the mechanics work and how the special fund is being utilized. But we can certainly work together on that to make sure that you have all the information you need to establish this.
Just to clarify, I think the whole board is on board with it, Lou, so let's start working on it.
Oh, okay, great. Happy to.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
All right. Good to see everybody. Be well. All right. I'm going to go, right?
Yep, you can.
Okay. All right. Take
I
care.
can stay on. You can stay on if you want. You're welcome to.
Okay. It's a big, busy beginning of the year. So
All
I'm
right,
going
very good.
Have a good
to
day.
time wisely. Take care. Bye.
Okay, is the fireworks folks on?
I'm going to see Mayor and go check the.
453-6900 could be.
Yes, and I've asked them to unmute. And if you don't mind, I'm going to dash out quickly and check the number.
All right, Gene, can I ask you to talk a little bit about the mural?
Yes, that's easy. Once the town, I guess, decided to keep the building,
Mm-hmm.
the focus kind of shifted back to the original request. They would much rather have it inside the community center. They are working with Mary to design some type of mural inside the building, but it would be a completely different focus. So if it's all right with the board and the town, if they proceed. But one of the questions they had that I couldn't answer was, who owns the bushes out there? Are they ours, or are they part of our next door neighbor?
That's a good question. We'll have to look at that. You're talking about the building right next door here.
Yeah, and then along the side where the mural would be, there are bushes, there's landscaping.
Well, we'd have to have a survey done to
Really?
delineate the boundary. Unless because you could have encroachment with the bushes if you get into the bushes.
Are they,
Or
do
we
we
could simply
maintain
ask
them?
them if we could do it. I mean,
There could be a pin out there on the sidewalk that would tell us our line.
We don't maintain it. The town doesn't currently.
We don't.
We don't. Huh.
So-
That could be a problem with bushes, growing up.
Well, I think the play would be, we asked, because they would probably had to put them up there for when they put the parking lot in.
Part of the landscaping project.
Yes, so I'm sure that they would be okay with it, but let's ask,
Okay, can we do that?
who's on it? You
Yeah.
guys all are here with it being there?
What
What do you think?
I'm all right with it.
I'm all right with it being there.
Okay, that's easy, as long as we can maintain the shrubberies in some fashion to keep them, either remove them, replace them somewhere, whatever we have to do. Would be great.
How tall are they, Gina? They in the way?
They seem to think they could be, or they might be. What's out there now?
I can't think of what's there.
Take a look, see what you think.
We can walk one, go walk down there and see.
I did, that was it.
So that was good. I wanted to have some discussion on the flood mitigation committee formation. And that's actually a little later on in my notes, so we'll hold off on that unless you have someone here. I don't think anyone's here in regards to that. So let's just wait a minute and see if we have the fireworks folks
Okay.
coming on. I guess the bottom line is, I think the price of fireworks went up considerably. And
From what to what, do you know?
I think they went, for some reason, I'm thinking they went from like 16 to 22,000.
A lot of money up in smoke.
You're not kidding.
And I certainly would like to find out what the justification is for the increase. I mean, I know things normally get increased, but that's a high increment.
What was the price of fireworks last year?
Price of fireworks last year was, I believe, about $16,000.
16, and now we're at 22.
He suggested that that could be about that. He doesn't know yet. That's what we'll discuss with you. He's going to join us at 12:30. He was saying he expected about a 5% increase. The 16,000 from last year was a lock-in for a 3-year contract that I believe the town paid 16,000 for the last 3 years. And then, so this would be the next round of contracts.
So this would be the next round of
You are
contracts.
correct.
Okay.
I think I have that correct, right?
Okay. All right, well, listen, we got about 7 minutes and I'm gonna kind of ramble through my notes. Since we had the last meeting, I sent to the commissioners kind of my notes on what I wanted to discuss today. And the intent here wasn't to try to blindside any of staff, but I wanted to get some input from the commissioners. And I think the very beginning of this is something that I think that we all do, but we probably I have lacked in kind of giving to make sure everyone's on the same page. And I'm here to talk to all the department heads and staff some of this is all repeat and we're doing it right now, but I just wanted to reiterate what my feelings are moving forward so that we're all on the same page. And, I talk about leadership. So I'm going to give a couple points here. We want to encourage, our department heads, I want to encourage innovation, creativity, and initiative. I think we do that. But I just want to stress that that's a level that we at this board expect out of our town. We want the highest level of service. And this is with everyone that, whether it's public works, whether it's finance, whether it's planning, whether it's our police department, administration, even us as commissioners and mayor. We want to be fair. We want to be fair to our residents. We want to be friendly. We want to be helpful. And we want to do what we say we're going to do. And do I believe we do all that? I do believe we do it all. But I just wanted to refresh everyone on kind of our thinking. Reputation. Our town's reputation falls on every one of our shoulders. including ours up here. I mean, we're the frontline people and we hear it and see it each and every day. And, we want to stress excellence, integrity, accountability, and honesty. And I believe we do that. So I'm just reaffirming what I wanted to talk about. Our human resources. That's all of our town. That's our family. I want to recognize that our people are the most valuable resource that we have. And it's truly what we feel up here. We truly feel that. And so I think that over the years, I think that I'm just telling you the way that we feel, and I think everyone recognizes how we feel. Our community, we want to respect and promote our community. We have some ups and downs throughout different areas of town, but we want to respect and promote it. We want to continue to move forward with our community. And, we're looking at, this is one that's interesting, we're looking at a TIF right now. And, it's our stewardship up here. We have to consider the long-term consequences of our actions and all of our actions. Think broadly across the issues, the disciplines and boundaries, and act accordingly. And I truly believe that we do that, but I just want to stress that every action has a reaction. And we're very conscious of that. So that was my, my 6 points that I wanted to stress. And I strongly believe that we're already doing those things, but I just wanted to bring it up again. The phones are going crazy here in the town.
Sorry about that.
So I wanted to hit on a couple of things as we're going through here. Are we ready? Oh, we still got about 4 or 5 minutes. So I'm going to start with Public Works, if I could. I got Brian here. The Public Works team, Dan Hanley and his team put together. In general, everyone here on this board has the 4 pages, and there was a couple things in here. I think that this is why this is important. There's some information in here that I'm sure that this town board didn't recognize. And I'll hit one specifically, which is so important. Although Elkton, it only constitutes 8 square miles, our existing infrastructure includes 75.8 miles of water mains, 68.8 miles of sewer mains, 614 fire hydrants, over 1,900 catch basins, 45 miles of road, and 25 miles of sidewalk. And that does not include our new construction that's ready to happen. This is important information for us because sometimes we think that, okay, we're going to run down here and take care of a lot of these different things. But I really thought that that's why this is important for us to understand those things. So with the with the Public Works Department, there was a few things that I had on my list, and I know that they were in here. One thing that we've always talked about was the waste pickup. Dan is actually making a recommendation again to not pick up waste, figure out a way that we can mulch the waste, and we don't have any place to store it. I mean, our storage of putting grass clippings has just about exhausted. Brian, can you touch on that a little bit for us?
Yes, yeah, basically, with respect to that, currently what we're doing now, today, we've been doing it for, past at least 2 years, primarily is the grass clippings specifically. We collect that, we have our normal weekly schedules, 5 days a week, and that right now goes over to Jones Chapel. So probably I'd say, at least for the past 2 years, it's been going over there. Prior to that, we were taking it to the landfill. And then kind of, the background behind that, the reason why I know when I became involved in it, we kind of backed off from bringing it to the landfill. We had, previous problems in getting the routes complete, every day, every week. And then part of that was that element of having to take that to the landfill. You get involved in you know, whatever you get involved in when you get down there, that adds a good bit of time, travel time for one, and then going through the process. So, you know, we stopped taking it down there ever since then. You know, the good side of it now, what we're doing is, you know, recently over the past probably a couple of months, really this year, you know, we've got in the backside of Jones Chapel, when I don't know how many people have gone in there, but when you go around the pond that we have there, and then back in the corner, we opened up an area back there for that. So what we started doing is trying to, you know, bring the grass clippings and the leaves into that area. And, you know, now what we're trying to do is, you know, this year, you know, we have a pile here, and then next year we start a pile over here. By the time we get to the second year, this first pile, we're actually starting to use that now. So our different topsoil needs and projects that we do, we're actually taking that, because that's, you know, fairly broken down by that point in time, and we're mixing it into the topsoil. So we're reusing as much as we can, or at the same time, we're starting to hit a point where it's like, all right, we need a little bit more area if we're going to continue with that path and try to reuse it, which we can, which is good. So, you know, we have that going on with both the grass and the leaves. The grass, you know, breaks down. Grass is about 70% water. And that was kind of one of the things that Dan had made mention to in here. You know, if there was a way to try to get more people to just mulch it up opposed to bagging it, you know, that would help out. And I know that's a difficult, you know, task there, you know. So that's kind of what we're doing there with both the leaves and the grass. We're using it when we can, but at the same time, you know, there's a good bit of the area that's being occupied with that stuff.
I'm going to cut you off for a second, Brian. Is the fireworks guy?
He is.
We're going to interrupt you, and so we don't hold him up.
He should be on.
Hi,
Hey, John,
how are you?
doing good. Tell us a little bit about the fireworks program.
Well, last year we switched sides of the road, and I think that worked out well. I'm not sure what the plans are for this year. Are you gonna keep it that way, or are you gonna move it back to where it was before?
Does anyone on the board have any problems the way it was last year? Or do you? I don't know.
I don't have a problem. The purpose seemed to work for what we did last year.
And then we had Dave. You know, Dave was a new. Well, he's not a new shooter. He's been doing it many years. But was he okay? Because he was assigned to your show last year, and I was gonna assign him again this year.
I didn't like the idea of closing the park down. I like people to be able to come in there like they always did.
Okay.
Even fireworks.
Does it make a difference in the
Yes.
proposal?
Because then it can't be new fireworks. With the liability.
Yeah, so the challenge that we have is there's the radius from the setting off the fireworks. Let me ask this question. Could folks be on the, if we set the fireworks off in the middle of Meadowbrook like you did this past year, and we allow people to walk through and be on the other side, is that a far enough radius away, or is that going to cause problems? I'm trying to.
Well, you need like 70 feet per inch of shell, and we do. So we had like 420 feet. You know, while they're being discharged, but you know, walking past the law is only 75 feet, actually. You know, so that we can make a new map. You know, if Michelle will put it on the map where you think it would be, I can map it out and see.
I think our challenge, Rob, would be it continues the traffic of the cars going down Delaware Avenue. I think, how did it work out, Chief, last year?
Well, I think it worked out fine last year. I don't know how well it was for people to view. I was right there in the cemetery area, make sure there were no issues. But I think that was fine. I think what you're gonna have is if you're talking about opening up Meadow Park east for viewing, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Do it, set them off in west and have, I don't know where you're gonna be parking.
People would be coming from all different
Oh,
directions.
Yeah.
Oh,
We wouldn't have any idea which way to come.
Now, the reason we can't do it where we always did it was because the tree line has advanced and cut down on the area. Can we not cut that back?
It's the trees along Delaware Avenue that are the viewing issue for the grounds fireworks, correct?
It's two, both saying the same,
Okay.
correct statement. And I don't believe we can cut those trees down. I don't believe that we can.
On the east side.
You are correct. And just.
Yeah, I think it's obstructing the view now of lower devices. You know, we can move to more shells, but that would change the show a lot. It'd be better if we can, shooting from where we shot from this year, we had plenty of room. It's the viewing that's the the challenge.
John, can we go higher?
We can go higher. We can go. Let me just get the exact list of stuff that we did, just so I can make sure I talk right. So, give me one quick second.
That's part of it.
I didn't think they were any
Reducing
higher.
the groundworks, so that the lower shells, reducing those, having higher, larger shells. And I myself traveled around town to see where I could see them.
See, last year we changed everything for people to be far away.
I'm on Whitehall Road, and to be honest with you. It was far from my spot.
Yeah. So last year we did up to 6-inch shells, so you can't really go bigger than that.
Have we had much feedback from the community about how they felt about the presentation last year?
I quite frankly didn't think there was any issues. Did you hear it?
I heard negativity at the beginning of the show, including on Whitehall Road, because I drove by your house. At the very beginning of the show, people were a little concerned because in different areas of town, they couldn't see them.
Certain trees were higher.
Correct. Then as the show started building, the shells started getting bigger and going higher, and that's when we were getting more positive feedback. I have not received any input, negative or positive, in email, or I don't believe I saw anything on our Facebook page.
And also, I think, prior fireworks displays, people always assemble them apart. Now with the way it's going, I guess people had to go someplace and they didn't know exactly where they were going to go to see the best view. And it's like Earl was saying, his is still the same, but some other area, maybe it might have been different. But
Yeah, well now, if you repeat what we did last year, it might be more broadly accepted, I would imagine.
See, now, one of the things that I did realize is from talking to Michelle and I think even Rob, down at the Big Elk Diner, Elk Mall,
Yes.
Yeah,
there was a nice view there. There's no trees and stuff. It's more that's on a level
that's what I was.
with me on my road, we're high plane, and the trees kind of covered all that. So I would know to go to one of these other locations. I want to see it. But that's just my opinion on that. So I didn't say it was bad. I think it's just that where I was.
Could be.
Did you get some bad input about parking or any of that?
Can I ask a question about the display?
Yeah.
Okay. John, was there a problem last year, like getting the fireworks because of COVID or anything? Or is there any kind of supply problem this year?
No, well, last year we had everything. This year we're waiting for our things to come in. And then the shipping is going up so much. It's like, historically we would pay like $11,000 for a container to ship, from China to here. Now it's like $38,000. It's like a crazy amount. I don't anticipate a problem. We have a lot of product, but so what we did was last year we took away the low things and we put a lot more large shells. We don't have the cakes in there at all last year. Just all shells.
Right. I love fireworks and I don't want to be the negative person here, but last year I kind of got the impression that they were it was like the same fireworks just being repeated over and over again. And I was surprised by that because in years past it seemed to be more of a variety.
I think that's attributed to the cakes and the lower effects because there was like over 52 different types of shells that we shot last year. It was more than ever as far as the shells, but there was no cakes and no candles and none of the low stuff, which I think is what you may have missed.
It's interesting, but I need to watch it. It was beautiful. And then all of a sudden it just seemed to me like, okay, well, I just saw that one, and then, it was like a repeat. Like they.
Yeah, because there's so many different ones in there. We have like, I mean, I can even give you the list. It was.
No, that's fine.
It was like hearts and faces and then the assortments were all different ones from different manufacturers too. And then you had the finale but if I look at the previous years, just 1 second, let me just take a look at 2019 because there was none in 20. So in 2019, let's see here. We actually had more shells last year, different types. There was in 2019 there were some different ones, but not. There were some cylinder ones I can see, but maybe that's it. I'm not really sure what. I can try to give more a different assortment because the assortments have like 16 different effects in 4-inch, and then in 5-inch they're all different, and in 6-inch they're all different. So there's 3 different types. So I try not to duplicate. I don't give any real duplicates. So I'm not really sure.
I don't mean to be negative about it. I just was curious if maybe there was a supply, problem or whatever, and if it would be better.
This year, I hope there's no supply problem. I hope. So everybody is like, everything is like delayed and I think people use it as an excuse, really. So I'm hoping that everything comes off as well. If we stay in the same thing, I'll make sure you have the right product, but we can't really go to 8-inch shells there. It would be too large. 6s are really, really big.
I think viewing everything from a great distance is cutting down on the wow factor for some people. And Rob, a minute ago when you asked me have I had negative feedback, this is not something I necessarily view as negative, but I did have a few people mention to me that they missed the picnic type setting of putting a blanket on the ground and seeing the fireworks up close and all being in the same place at the same time with no obstructive view. I think that's what some people were missing.
Okay.
Yeah. Because when they're in the park, it's like they're there with them in the park. It's like, everything is in the park and their display is all the way off. It's across the road even, but it's still right there in front of them. And here it's really distant, and there's all trees and you don't really hear them going up. You see them coming up, it's a different, but I can understand where that comment comes from because they're not with them now, in the park.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were trying to recreate that down on the ball field.
Yeah.
It was probably good for them. They kind of capitalized on it.
The Elkton Little League was highly recommended we do it the same way because they said next year.
They were very good with it. Like they started selling food and selling.
They said next year they'll put bouncies out there. If COVID allows it, they're going to make it a big fair event down there.
That'll help a lot.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. So when would we have to?
Yeah.
John, when do you need us to sign off on this?
Yeah, I just really, if you decide at this, the location, when that's going to be definite, that's the most important thing.
Let's draw a straw here. What do you think? Are you okay the way it was last year, or do you want to change it?
I'd like to see people have a more unobstructed view of it. These things that you're talking about, what Michelle just mentioned, maybe doing something similar down at the Elk Mall parking lot. I think all that would be great for the community. But we have to keep in mind that distance, that barrier that you need.
400, they would be 420 feet.
420 feet.
Shell to the closest spectator. And I will tell you that because of what happened a couple of years ago with the trees overgrowing on the east side, Lieutenant Waldridge was walking along Delaware Avenue, stepping on burning embers that had been falling on Delaware Avenue. Just simply because they have to move them up closer. But if they were to have a 6-inch shell on the east side, again, think 420 feet, and we can't cut down those trees in the front of Meadow Park, I don't believe. Because that's part of the problem too.
On the east side.
Think of the east side.
And we can't draw a barrier on the west side that people cannot go beyond it, like they can't go all the way up to the road.
We can do that, but keep in mind, on the west side, you have a line of trees down that front of Meadow Park as well. So they're
Mhm.
going to create an issue with visibility as well.
The further back from them you are, the less they're going to
I understand, I appreciate that. I just want to know that.
But you open up the possibility of traffic problems again.
Well, I think it would have to be all pedestrian on there. I think you still need to keep Delaware Avenue closed.
But you know, we've had a lot of variety. I know we used to go down to, Mellow Park and watch them on the east side, fireworks or whatever, standing, but yet on the other hand, you didn't think about the people who was watching it from afar, who you had to go through maybe a 5 to 10 minutes interruption, waiting on fireworks to go back into the air again.
Right, right.
So, you know, if you're away and you shoot them all, everybody gets a chance to see them. Just an opinion.
I think Heater Park will have an event this year down there, which would be probably as good. The last few years, we haven't had anything at Meadow Park. We haven't had music down there. We haven't had any food trucks or any vendors that I can remember in probably the last 6 or 7 years.
Really?
Yeah.
And at one time, I don't know whether you were watching it then, Rob, we also used to have, the guy that comes down with the flag.
Yeah, they used to jump out of the airplane and bring the flag.
Yeah.
I've done that years.
Right, because, yeah, it's changed down there.
Do you want to jump out of the plane?
Do it, do anything. Well, I mean, if we can't cut back the tree line on the east side and go back to the way we were doing it, then I think that these other options that we have, the event down at Heater Park, and like Michelle said, if we can duplicate something down at the mall parking lot, I think that would be a great draw. And yeah, I think that it would satisfy our constituents.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think for safety reasons, we gotta shut that road off.
Okay.
I
Totally on board.
All right, very good. John, we'll
Okay.
autograph the paperwork.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And thank you for
I
having me.
have one more question though. I heard you mention that these fireworks get shipped over from China. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And I
Most
guess
of them.
You're locked into a contract with this company?
With the shipping company?
Yeah.
Yeah,
With
it's
the
actually it's actually one guy controls like 95% of the shipping of hazmat materials from China. And it's like
It seems like a lot of money to get them shipped over. I mean, we have no option of doing it here in the States. We have.
no, everybody has tried. They tried that. They tried making them in Mexico, but they weren't good. And but in the United States, it's so hard to have manufacturing because of OSHA and all the regulations. And you know, starting a fireworks factory would be so prohibitive as far as the cost of the material. So the shipping is they've raised the cost of material a little bit, but the shipping is really what's hurting us right now.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that goes back down, So because every time they say supply chain, I feel like it costs us another $5. They keep adding that on because there's only so many ocean liners that come from China. When there's not too many options now. It's all Maersk and only one guy actually controls the explosives part of it. Because on a container ship, there's like 3,000 or 4,000 containers, but they'll only put like 10 explosive containers on the top, outside, per ship. So it's like you have to deal with them.
Guess what the price of this is?
Your cost for this is, John,
Well,
what's,
last year was I think it was 16,500, right? Yeah, so we're trying to get as close as possible. It may go up a little bit because of the shipping, but we're trying to keep it about the same. Maybe a little bit more.
can you send us over the final number if you can?
Yeah. So I'll send it over to you.
Take action.
Okay.
And would you like a 3-year? It would be a 3-year contract or is it, like,
I think, we're gonna do 1 year at a time right now.
Okay.
Because hopefully it would go back down and, who knows what's happening, if it,
I understand.
everything is so, unstable now. I thought this was over. Now it's back again. Every time it's over, it's back again.
I'm right with you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
It's
John.
All right. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you having me.
All right, thank
Thank you,
you.
John.
Bye.
All right, Brian, we had you, talking about the grass and I think we followed you along pretty well. Let me real quickly ask you about recycling. Now, we currently have a recycling program in the town of Elkton. Now, does that recycling benefit anybody or is it going to the same place in the dump?
As far as I know, it should be separated, but, I don't think I can answer that accurately.
Can you speak to it?
Yes, it is separated unless it's contaminated. And if it's contaminated, then it has to go into the regular material section of the dump. And if that's the case, then it could cost us a lot more money each load.
So if it's raining and you have cardboard outside, is that now contaminated?
No, if it's a pizza box with grease in it, that's contaminated.
Okay.
And that's one of the issues that we have, with the pickups is a fairly large volume of contamination. That's one of the issues with the recycling program.
What types of contamination are you seeing most often?
Just like, I think, even like cans with food in them, just regular, whether it's soup cans or what have you, probably even some, plastic with whatever it may be.
People are throwing this in with their clippings?
No, there's recycling, so, if they.
Oh, we're okay.
Right, your regular recycling with, plastic or cardboard or whatever, it's technically, it's supposed to be clean, before it goes into recycling or they won't take it, that's considered being contaminated, like, just like Michelle said, if you have a pizza box and it's got, half the.
So if you didn't wash out your tomato soup can and you throw it into your recycling, it's contaminated.
Technically, it's
Okay.
contaminated, right, and. people
And we're being
just,
charged for that?
It goes into regular
Trash
trash
gotta go in the regular. Yeah,
and we're billed.
yeah, they,
Extra?
Yes,
they can't pick it up as
That's not-
recycling.
but if you think about the cost savings for getting into recycling, then you're paying less for clean recycling materials than you would in the general.
How can we get that message out?
How can you enforce it?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess the public awareness may help in some cases, potentially. But, a lot of it comes down to people just don't want to wash their trash, basically.
They don't want to do that. They don't want to use the extra water to do it.
Yeah, that may be too, yeah.
Hmm.
It's the time of doing it, they're throwing something away, so they don't want to wash the trash. There's a lot of, I've heard comments from people, so it's, the way they.
Very good. One of the things that was on my list was the water meter project, and I got the notes here from the water meter. We talked about this, and I think the water meter project may have started about 5 years ago. And this has been something that it hurts me to say this, but we probably should have moved forward with subbing this out and getting it done in that 90-day or 120-day window that group stated that they could get it done. So we're going into about year 5, and we're at about 80% is my understanding. So I guess, I don't know how the rest of the board feels. So do we feel that this is good, acceptable, or get it when they can get it? Or do we want to try to put some focus in on this and knock this thing out?
I would like to knock it out.
I think, I don't think Dan's here, but I don't know if Brian can speak to it. But changing, putting water meters in is a little more complicated than knocking it out.
Right.
No, I'm
Dealing with the people.
I'm with you
Access to
100%.
the property, it's a lot involved here.
I'm 100% with you, but my whole point was 5 years ago, there was a group in here that said that they could do it in 90 or 120 days the whole town, whether it was realistic or not.
Yeah, they-
Whether it was realistic or not, they would have handled all the voting, they would have scheduled all the appointments, and they would have handled. I think one of our challenges is that, talking with, some of the folks involved, I don't know if we have that person that's constantly being the hound dog to get into that house, and that's what you pay those folks to do. So I guess my question is, can we bring in a temp just to make a call for these? Let's get it done, figure out a strategy. Now, maybe we don't need to, but they have to let us in those houses.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the challenges with that. I know, for a fact is, the repeated, sometimes you have to send people a notice over and over and over again until they, get about 5 of them and they realize that you're serious and,
And I know COVID has hit,
yeah.
where people don't want you to go into their houses, but maybe we can say this, maybe we can try to do our best to address all the pit meters first and knock them all out in whatever houses we
He's
can't get
putting
in.
pit meters in some places,
Yeah.
which makes a lot more time.
Yeah, that's, you don't have to worry about the access, of course, if you replace.
It's
Pretty trash.
I'm sorry, what?
I said you have to remove the other meter and put the pit meter in.
Yeah, the pits, from what I'm aware of, they're probably a little bit easier because you don't have the issue of the people, trying to get a hold of people to get access to it.
I know that's been the challenge. I recognize that. And the other group probably would have had the same problem. I'm not saying that. They would have had, but let's see what we can do, Lou, to do our best to knock out that remaining 20%.
Listen, excuse me, I don't like playing hardball with people's water. Earl brought up a point just now, which I think is very hard. Shut their water off until they allow us to switch the meter.
I think they do.
That could be a viable solution. The other solution may be that if we charge them a higher rate until they allow us to switch that meter. You can't do that either.
I know in some cases they've sent notes out saying, hey, after repeated calls to try to get a hold of people and, they've sent notes out saying, if we can't get in, we're gonna shut the water off, and then usually the people respond.
Yeah, I really don't want to do that, but I think we need to get this done.
You get a pretty good yield, pretty good yield, I think, from what I'm aware of, that once you do that, then people start calling. So people just don't, some don't take it seriously when they're asking.
We need to make them take it seriously.
And I think the other little hiccup that I know that I think we're all at wit's end with has been, it was discussed at the last meeting, was our water loss. And it was interesting to talk to the folks from the study that said 20% may not be out of line, which quite frankly, I feel a little bit better when they say that. I feel a little bit better. But I would like to put some, I know that we've exhausted a lot of man hours trying to find out where all this is, but I would like to ask that we could give it one more look over of everything from the infrastructure side to make sure that there's nothing on our infrastructure leaking that we can see. And that means, even though we went out there, let's go through every area and take one more look, and then I'll be satisfied.
Rod, how do we check for a leak without digging?
I can't answer that. Maybe
Yeah, Mark could definitely talk a little bit.
Chip might know the answer back here too.
KCI and other companies have equipment that listen, and they can go to different areas around water mains, and they can tell if you have a leak. It's probably a fairly expensive process, but it works. It's been around for a while.
I actually thought we owned that equipment.
We do.
We own that equipment.
Yeah, correlators, we do.
And maybe we can dig some test pits and holes and I know now's not the time to do it, but maybe first time in the spring. Or if we're gonna have water main breaks here soon. And when we have those water main breaks and we fix it, maybe that's when you put the equipment on it before you seal up the hole.
How
Yeah.
long would it take to complete a study like that?
I mean, it depends on, I guess it depends on what we do. I mean, again, that's more of Mark's area, but, with the equipment we have, like Mayor Alt said, we have those correlators that's what they're for. They're for, the proactive approach to trying to make sure that we don't have water leaks, which you go around, pretty much isolate an area. I don't know exactly, you put one in, two ends of the water main and basically look and listen for the leaks,
Yeah.
Other-
Can we
other-
find out?
Think about microphones. They're like microphones.
Yeah.
And they go and
Okay.
they set them up in the middle of the night, or they have them running in the middle of the night. That's when you're less likely going to have water usage. And they listen for activity along the pipes.
And I know there's different things that Infomark, will notify us on too, when they see the, water levels, different things changing.
But that's when it gets a big
Right.
level. So
Yeah, I don't know what the trigger is for that. But
I mean, it's just be nice to know when we could touch back on this subject and have more answers.
Yeah, I can take an action on that to find out. And
Just a ballpark. I mean, are we gonna be talking about this in 6 months from now? Or are we gonna be talking about it 2 months from now? I just would like to know.
yeah, I'll find out and see if we come up with a plan as to what we could do. And
And what would it entail? What would the projected timeframe be?
that's something we can probably, be back to work next week.
Oh, that's great. I would like that. as
Perfect.
well.
The other handful of things here I have that I kind of put related to public works. No, I know we're attempting to check these things out. One was a water quality issue in Holly Hall, which I think that we're checking it from a different, but I just want to make sure that that's on everyone's mind, that we want to make sure that we don't put that on the back burner. I know that Lewis has been working with KCI in regards to additional water allocation from all sources. That may mean finding another well. It could be asking for more allocation out of our existing wells. It could be additional sources from artesian. But I know that Lou's been working on that. One thing that's I'd like to figure out how we can finish the beautification of Marina Park. I mean, we started putting some effort into the Marina Park by working on the ramp for the docks and so forth. And I know we were moving forward, but I'm not sure what the reason why we kind of stopped. And I don't know if that was because you're waiting for us to figure out if we can get bulkheads or if we can dig in. I don't know.
I know that was part of it, I guess, with the, and I think that's something that without a doubt, because we did make some great progress, is that, I don't know if a group needs to be formed as to, here's what we want to do, the vision of Marina Park. But, as I guess everybody knows that, once we put that floating dock in, people started using it. We do have, the ongoing issues of the silt that comes into the ramp. Right now, there's a good bit back in there, but that's just really part of, can it be dredged on some type of program? I know the county just did the other end up the county ramp, kind of above that as it goes into the, into the Elk River. That was just done this past year. I know they had a grant for that.
I'm sorry, could you tell me where is this county grant that you're talking about? Is it talking about Brownie Shore?
Yes. Yeah, so all in front of that ramp right there, I mean, that's all pretty good water right there. There's a good, I think, 10 feet of water in there. And then once you go the other way into the, the larger water, that's where they dredged this past year. They went all the way up and, toward Locust Point, in the Elk River. So, and I've been all up and down there. I know once you get past that ramp, you know, most of that's pretty good all around there. When you close to town, you know, you start to get pretty low water. You have obstructions with the trees and things that have fallen down in there, you know, several years, and then down, you know, of course, down past the ramp. So, you know, if that was dredged, you know, you get a number of years out of that where you get navigable, you get down through there. You know, it's a good thing. You know, that was opened up.
How about all the way up to Delaware Avenue? Is that possible?
Yeah, well, I know we have a pipe that runs across, that goes over there across near American Home and Harbor that starts to get shallow, but I mean, if it was, yeah.
That's sewer line.
Yeah. So, but
It runs under the creek
pretty,
bed?
yeah, it's pretty shallow. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Lewis, man.
No, I'm not kidding. It runs across there and goes to the,
That's.
across and ties into the other sewer line.
I guess what it was
There
was,
years ago.
yeah, when they changed something there, when they stopped using that
Pump
station,
station.
yeah, then they, you know, replaced the pipe and it's relatively shallow right around there, somewhere around there, but, you know, that's, yeah, I guess, you know, back to the original question, I think that's kind of where we as in Public Works weren't sure what, you know, where we were going with it.
You know, I guess, when, I know that all these kind of blend in together. What I'm gonna mention was, you know, on the agenda, we had, a flood mitigation committee formation, to get some residents of the town involved, to see what they want. You know, not what, you know, a team effort here, right? And I know that Gene has, started working on a grant to, help with the study information that could help fund some of this initial work for us. So we are working on that as a team here. But I know that, the beautification, if after everything is done, and we can't do a flood control project, but if we could beautify the Big Elk Creek from, let's say, Delaware Avenue all the way past the Baker Bridge, to the marina, I tell you, that's a home run for our community. It's a home run. Whether we ever fix the flooding or not, if we can beautify that with bulkhead going all the way around there, and it's cleaned up, it's a huge win, and that's our vision. I think that that's something that we want to see happening. We just gotta get to those steps. So I think as soon as we find out whether we get some funding, this TIF project that we were talking about, those are the dollars that could be put into that.
So what Gene's working on would help cover what you just mentioned about the beautification?
Yeah, Gene, you want to tell them?
Sure. I'm getting a cost estimate from Duffield Associates to put into this grant application for a comprehensive flood control study. It's going to be a little bit broader than what the previous study was. This will be, it'll go from Far Creek above the current bridge there to Route 40. And James Taylor and I were discussing it. What I'd like the study to do is to take a comprehensive look at the area and incorporate stormwater management, flood control, but also public access to the water, stabilization of the bulkhead area, a trail, James' suggestion was a trail system that would connect all this too. So I think that might be something that they like to see in these grant applications, sort of a broad spectrum of things that we can address with this study. And then I want the study to give us cost estimates and a priority list of where do we start? And then what's the next project, so that we can, through the years, start funding the different phases of this project.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah, I think, I'd like to know if we get that moving forward before we start putting together a committee. Yeah, you guys agree with that?
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the play we do there. So we kind of knocked that one out also. So I think we're on the page here. The last thing with Public Works that, well, maybe not the last thing, but the Delaware Avenue Bridge, I know Lou's still constantly working on that, getting that pedestrian bridge and we spent this ARPA money over and over and over again on a lot of different projects, but we can certainly, I know that's an infrastructure. We could certainly, if the state doesn't step up, maybe we step up and just get our edging.
Our wish list for state highway is coming up soon, where we submit to MDOT about all the transportation projects, transportation priorities letter is the term I was looking for. So I usually include the things that are always on there, which is the pedestrian bridge, the 21340 intersection, the train station. And nothing succeeds like persistence. So
But we do that every year, right?
we do that every year. Yeah. But, and if there's any other issues, I know that Bridge Street sidewalks, and that's a state highway, but I want to hammer in home again, that needs to be addressed. It's listed on a number of our plans, that road needs to be
Well,
done.
but yeah, I didn't, will MAPCO even address that? The sidewalk?
We did the pedestrian plan that
Pedestrian.
identified that, the downtown plan, the trans-oriented development plan, they all mentioned that.
When you look at North Bridge Street objectively, there's not a lot of sidewalk that has to be done. Because there's so many entrances for businesses along there, and I never realized. And then you've got Dollar General who put that beautiful sidewalk in that goes up away from the road, which nobody uses. I don't know, but
Gee, did you mention the change in the wish list this year about the requiring cost estimates?
For anything $5 million or more, and if it adds more than a mile of
Okay, so you don't need it for.
road, it depends on what you're asking for. It depends on how large the project is. If you're adding, I think, a mile of road or a mile of rail
Well, a
or
train station will cost more than 5
5 million, that they expect that, but I'm putting it in the whole one. And we had cost estimates on it. The cost estimates were done 10 years ago for a $20 million train station.
Yeah.
I know Lewis has gotten several letters back from State Highway, just kind of shooting down a replacement bridge. But does anybody feel like it's still worth pursuing?
I would include that in that flood control study as
Yeah, but not a pedestrian bridge.
the clear span,
Yes,
bridge.
with a
yeah.
wider span. I mean, that just seems to be like a no-brainer to me, and
I think we all feel that way.
Huh?
And Lou's been, listen, I can tell you, I don't know if you guys have seen his emails,
Oh, I have.
but he's fighting for a new bridge. What year was that bridge built?
35 or something.
I like to hear
1935, we
this-
want a new bridge.
Just keep sending back these negative responses. I mean, who is he?
I sent it to the chief of the structures in the state highway. That's the people. And they say that the bridge is sound.
I think we put the fireworks under there.
There you go.
Definitely close the road.
It's like, we're the ones that live here, we're the ones that use it, we're the ones that realize the need. And they just brush us off. I mean,
Well, I imagine they're building bridges, a lot of places where there
I
are
know,
hundreds of thousands of cars that travel over those bridges versus 8,000 was the last measurement we had. So that's true.
8,
So it's not, there was a study done.
How long
And, but the
ago?
amount of traffic over this probably doesn't rank it into priority.
what will
that's my
divert
guess.
traffic?
Well, we went for safety reasons. Why we went to that.
Yeah, that's
Because of pedestrians crossing, walking.
that's why they're
That's
doing
what the main
pedestrian.
thing, unless they wait until somebody gets hit and hurt, then they're gonna want to hurry and do something. That's where we should go for more safety.
I think I mentioned that in every
He has.
message to the state highway.
Sure.
I know you have, and that's why they're kind of agreeing to do the pedestrian bridge, but at this rate, we won't need it. Because like I said before, we'll all just be able to walk right across there on the sill. So, we won't need it.
No, I actually had I was in Annapolis yesterday morning, went to an event for Senator Hershey.
Oh,
And he actually asked me about the flood control project and where we wanted to go with it this year. So if any of this is through the state of Maryland, he's on board. So that's very good news.
That's great.
And Lou, maybe it's time for me to get him to put a little pressure on the state highway to replace that bridge. If that would help. I know Senator Baker got a bridge replaced for us. He's got the same position.
That happened quickly.
One thing the board has to consider here is that tidal waters are the jurisdiction of the Corps of Engineers. And so any joint permit involves the state, but the Corps is their jurisdiction of tidal waters. And that goes up to almost Delaware Avenue.
Maybe I'll send that letter over to Rosita, and if that could work. Okay, I know we're,
Infrastructure, are we pursuing the MDE grant funds that we talked about the other night?
I'm still learning the South of what I can and cannot do, so.
I didn't know if that was something you would do, Jeannie would do.
I think, and Jean's gonna be my mentor when it comes to.
Are you aware of what we're talking about?
Not sure. What particular,
There was an announcement made that there's, I think, 144, was it? 144, it was on the MML newsletter.
I'll
Is it $1 million or $1 billion out there for infrastructure improvement?
grants or loans?
Both. Both. And definitely, I think we would fall into that need for sure. So I brought it up to the meeting the other night. I just want to make sure somebody is working on it.
Well, it'd be interesting to apply for money to fix a state highway.
Now talk about our infrastructure. All water and sewer infrastructure.
ARPA can cover that.
Well, let's save our ARPA funds. I mean, let's go for whatever we can.
But we have to expend them. We have to have them committed by the 24th. Otherwise, you won't have them. So that's why we're pushing infrastructure, water and sewer right now.
so I think we have the public works information. I want everyone to review what Dan and his team put together. But I think I kind of touched some of the high points that I'm looking at. Jeannie Minner had dropped off to us the capital improvement projects that have been recommended by the Elkton Planning Commission and
Planning department, sorry.
the Planning Department. It did say Planning Department.
But it's based on a number of plans that have already been approved.
And I'm going to just review these real quick. I'm going to say them out loud so everyone can actually, and I think that these are all very, very important parts. I mean, we're water and sewer expansion to accommodate growth and yeah, if you.
The only thing that I see that I would simply say, and I don't know what y'all have done to really educate Elkton, but you talk about the beauty, you talk about a lot of other things with it, and you talked about the recycle, but the trash itself has been a concern to me. We just never educated our people with how they put trash out. We changed from the old time way we used to do the trash when we had our people doing it. We hired a company. We got totes. Everybody does not have totes. And just the way trash is left out on the street. I mean, I know these drivers get paid to pick up trash, but sometimes they're treated like dogs because they got to bend over and pick up a pizza box. They got to bend over, whatever. And I know oftentimes some of those drivers, they complain about it, but they're getting paid. But then they will compare other areas they go to, and you know, you got your coats along the line here. You come up on Main Street on a Sunday night and you see where people live that just took bags of trash just sitting out there. I just think, you know, these people are real who pick up the trash even though they get whatever, but it sure doesn't help them. Not at all. And it looks bad. I mean, if you let's assume that the trash is supposed to be picked up on a Monday downtown, I'm using for instance because I've come through there all the time and other areas as well. And the trash is not picked up. So you come to work on that business Monday and all you see these bags out there. No different if you got totes or something sitting in there which hides the debris and everything else. But that's another story. I just don't think, and I include myself, that we've done a great job. And you know, we talk about being visionaries and all the other adjectives that Rob used. I think sometimes sitting on the board need to look at that as well. You're talking about the beautification. And I know you don't compare other places, but you could ride through Port Deposit on trash pickup and all you see are totes aligned the street. You don't see the bags, no nothing. And I just think that needs to be in consideration.
Waste management came in here with a proposal to provide totes, be like 5,000 or something. And the board, because of the cost, the board didn't authorize them to proceed that way. So we just saw a piecemeal thing, but.
Is that
believe it or not,
considered
there are-
infrastructure now, Lou?
I'm sorry,
Would that be considered infrastructure?
waste management totes, that would be from their company.
I know what I'm saying. Could the ARPA funds pay for infrastructure? That's infrastructure. I'm just starting to think outside the box. Maybe it could be used. I'm asking.
Report to say that.
I'm just asking. So
They
there,
can make the comment.
What you have to do, you have to get it and it has to be incorporated into the price of trash collection.
I don't think, Lawson, I could be wrong, ever discussing on this board about having to buy totes. For some reason, why did the two people that get totes get them? It wasn't like we have a plan with them and you're gonna get so many, because you got many of them sitting out here, when you know where they are, just sitting there. Somebody, I'm quite sure, in the town of Elkton could use one of them.
Dan has some, but I don't think he has that many down.
No, basically the totes that we have are replacing, when the trash company, breaks one, through doing their normal routine, we go out, we have them over at the sewer plant.
Yeah.
We'll go out and we'll give them a new one. So in a lot of cases, well, in most cases, we're replacing their trash can that they bought with a waste management can because it got broke while they were loading trash.
And certainly using creativity and any other adjective you want to put in there, whether it's visionary or whatever, on a given trash day, you could have somebody from a department to ride around Elkton to see exactly where you may have a problem. And if you see all these trash build up in certain areas, and certainly you can identify addresses, maybe send something to somebody to, we need your help in doing whatever. You just can't continue being in a town and allow this to continue to happen. I mean, people throw a diaper box out there, diapers, you pick it up.
Your trash has to be in a container of some sort.
Of
Whether they
something.
buy it or.
Whether it has or not, I think sitting on this board, we need to make an attempt to say we did whatever. My opinion.
Good opinion.
I think Charlie's spot on with this, and I would say, it's going back, let's use some creativity and an initiative to figure out a way to do it. Main Street to me, is a simple answer. I mean, I've said it before, it's a very simple answer. There's a dumpster that belongs to between the Brown office and the Hammond office. We replace that with one of ours and we pay for their apartment's trash, but we require the folks that's on Main Street there then walk across and dump their bag in that trash can. So they're gonna have to walk. They're gonna have to walk maybe 30 yards from their building to run it down there. Now, maybe we also put one in the municipal lot behind Minahan's. Now, the comment always comes out, okay, someone's gonna go by and dump all kinds of stuff in there, they're not even in town. Well, listen, we need to put cameras on it, and if we see something that someone's going through there, we have to really lay it on. It's gonna happen. But let's think outside the box a little bit.
Thanks, sir.
You have anything about
I
trash?
did have a comment about the trash, and I've often had people come up to me and express their concerns about this, and I have seen it myself firsthand. The waste management, they're supposed to pick up regular trash on Mondays, recyclables on Thursdays, is that correct?
Whatever, depending on the neighborhood.
Depending on the neighborhood. They pick up both cans and throw it in the same trash truck. And I'm wondering, why did I spend all week separating my trash?
Because if it's out there, they're assuming it's recyclable.
My can is marked with one of the big
Yeah, but,
stickers from the town, says
Yeah.
recyclables.
so we're gonna tell them not to pick up any recyclables unless there's a sticker on it?
I
'Cause
don't
that's
know
the
the
only way to
solution, but I'm
tell.
saying that a lot of people don't even bother because they say, why bother?
I get it, you're right, they pick up our trash.
Great.
That's not recyclable. And I try to avoid that.
I do know that waste management's going to be coming before the board.
I mean, they can't tell if it's
Good.
recyclable or not. If it's
That's
sitting
probably
out there on that day,
That's,
they're gonna take it.
yeah, some of the things with the whole program, there's some more structure that needs to be put around it, I think. And, you know, the identification of the trash cans and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
because the way that it is right now, it's people are buying their own cans and they may have a sticker on it, they may not.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I just think we have too many rentals. We got people in and out, and they don't know the program.
Right.
Well, that's true.
Too, Rob.
They don't know the program.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
There's no quality control when it comes to recyclables, is there?
There is none.
Really.
Well, Lois will be on it, then it's good.
There's gotta be an innovative way. If you think of one, can you let us know?
Well, consistency and is definitely one thing, you know, like with the trash cans, if there was a way to provide them with
That's
the
why.
cans and, you know, trying to knock out as many of the obstacles as we can, and then the anomalies, you know, the in and out of as Mayor Aldred said, the rentals is, we'd have to figure that one out, because that's hard to control, but eventually I think we can get it.
Yeah. That's right, because the next thing we'll be getting phone calls, why didn't you pick up my recyclable?
Oh, yeah, we get those.
That's gonna be the big one.
We actually have a can down at the sewer plant for when, if it's a miss, or, you know, they didn't have it out in time or what have you. We, as in Public Works, will go get their can. In most cases, we'll take it down to the sewer plant, dump it in the recycling can and bring their can back. So
Wow.
we end up doing a decent amount of legwork to keep things moving with respect to the trash.
Or yours.
All right, very good. I wanted to touch base back on the planning department, and I'll go through these. One, of course, the expansion of the water and sewer expansion. We need to develop this comprehensive flood control plan, which we're looking into. Of course, the pedestrian bridge sidewalk, it's still out there. The adaptive reuse of Elkton Council Hall into a restaurant. Now, that's the old planning department behind the Alliance. We need to figure out how we can move forward with that also. This one's near and dear to me. You know, let's save Holly Hall. We've tried, we get close, we don't get close. We got to figure that one out. Yeah, Gene.
I finally got a hold of an appraiser that responded back to me, and she's supposed to get back to me with the cost estimate for the appraisal for the Holly Hall building, so we can at least have a starting point to work with. Mr. Cordish on, could we apply for a grant? Can I get a strategic demolition grant? Can I get something to try to acquire the property and then somehow preserve it and adaptively reuse the property?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Can we take it?
We could, well, it's all adjoined. We'd have to take part of the mall. It's all one deed.
It's, you know, the reuse that I have in mind that I think would be perfect is to have a cooking school in the commercial part and make the Holly Hall Mansion the high-end restaurant. And I spoke to a caterer that was very interested in doing that, but can't seem to move forward on the building, so.
I'll reach out to him one more time. He's exhausted me.
Yeah,
Mr. Cordish.
really.
He's a nice man, very nice man, but. The Pocket Park, you know, we talked about this, and that's the Ford property. That's right there at the intersection of Locust and High and going into the Hermitage. That big park there, the big land there, it's owned by Bob Ford. At one time, it was going to be a funeral home, but something to keep in mind, it could be a wonderful park. As it is now, it could be a dog park, but more controlled than it is now. I mean, folks walk their dogs in there and they don't even pick up anything. It's pretty disgusting over there, quite frankly, but
Didn't the sign just go up for Zoom?
it is for
Well,
sale.
We, several times it's been for sale. I had, was under the impression several years ago from speaking with Mr. Ford, that he was interested in possibly selling it to the town for a park. And I would have tried to obtain program open space funds to acquire it. And so we went through the process of getting 2 appraisals on the property, and Mr. Ford did not accept either one of the appraisals. So he was not a willing seller at that point. I couldn't pursue the grant money for it.
Do you know what the price is right now? Any chance?
I am not sure. I know that it's, but last time when it went up for sale recently and I contacted the realtor about it, it was 4 times the price that it was originally. That was not acceptable to Mr. George.
And we also have to finish the interior of the stone house and
I'll be applying for a grant in March for that.
perfect.
The Maryland Historic Trust Capital Grant Program, their theme for this next grant round has to do with this, I'm gonna mess up the pronunciation of this. Semi-quincentennial of the, of this country's independence, so, anniversary, so, the theme is that, and since the things down, there's a map on the wall behind the screen of the Battle of Yorktown and the troops that came down from the north to fight the Battle of Yorktown. And Elkton is where Washington and Rochambeau's troops came, and then they split. Some of them went over land and some of them went by water here. So, and that's on the other side.
Perfect.
But anyway, that grant is, once that's the theme, and that site would hopefully score highly on that round.
So there's some acquisition that the planning department would like to see, along with train station, if we can ever get the train station going, some parking lot upgrades and so forth. But these are all things that I think fit into all of our wheelhouses, and we rely on Jean to do the best she can because she's writing a lot of grants and doing a lot of items down there. So I really don't have anything else for planning. Do you guys have anything for planning? No, I didn't. Ball fields at Elk Landing, was that the 1876 Doubleday fields that they were looking at?
That was what, I believe you were considering moving the ball fields from Meadow Park because of the frequency of flooding.
Oh.
And you had identified that area, and we had had some preliminary engineering done with KCI, I believe.
By the jail. Remember we had the drawings about that? We never. I don't know. What do we haven't done anything.
Whether it's still an item or not, but that was one of the things that was sort of hanging around in the background.
How much land is there?
I believe it was 20 acres.
And the Elk Landing Association, did they sign it back over to us?
I believe they did.
I think they did also. He signed it back over to us, so it's sitting there for us to, I think they're just plowing the field now, aren't they?
Yeah, I believe that they're allowing the farmer to farm it so that it doesn't have to be mowed by us.
I think if we do a flood control project, Meadow Park isn't gonna be like it is today. And we're gonna need that space over there that's high and dry. Question is, do we move forward with it?
I would.
So the Sustainable Communities Plan has to be updated by July of this year. And I kind of provided a lot of information on what they're looking at, because we're supposed to show projects that would address some of these questions in our next plan. And the last paragraph under that section shows projects that were identified in our 2017 Sustainable Communities Plan, but were never achieved. There were things that were achieved, but these are the things that weren't achieved. So we may want to consider using it as a priority, or just if we decide they're not a priority anymore, they can come off the next plan.
Okay, and that's everything. Of course, the flood control is always one. Steam bank restoration's one. We're doing the capital improvement plan, I think everything on here looks good, other than the preservation, the little wedding chapel, I think that's passed.
Okay.
Thank you, Jean.
Yep.
I'm moving right on down the line here. We got Chip here, spoke to Chip last week. And, going back to the amount of rentals that we have here, we talked a little bit about, does the town of Elkton want to move forward and figuring out if we want to do rental inspections? And what does that mean? It could mean anything. It could mean anything from going into the home, make sure it's habitable, making sure that if you need a permit if you're going to rent your properties. It can mean a lot of different things. And I know here we don't have the staff to do it, but the comment that I made would be, do we want to take a look at maybe having an outside company come in and see if that's something that they could develop for us?
I did have a chance to look into that a little bit. I did find 2 companies that actually do that. And I think if we do something like that, that's the way we would have to go. But again, I think we have to write ordinances for all this. And, you know, again, just like the problem we have with the state's attorney's office, that I have a meeting with John, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. You know, they're going to have the same issue. I guess violations would probably be keyed in with with Jeff Holter and have him file violations. But if the state's attorney's office doesn't take them, we're stuck again. We have no enforcement to make them comply. So that's, you know, just as we're having a problem with it, I think it's going to, you know, show its head with the rental property inspection program.
We were, to add to that, exactly what you're saying, I had a conversation with the county attorney yesterday, and he stated that all the municipalities are having a similar issue, and I suggested to him that could he ask if we could get 1 day a month for all municipalities. That's all we want. All municipalities in the county, let us bring in those small time infractions, what you call them, and let us try to make these things right. So we'll have a response on that. But I guess, does the team here want to move that direction? Do you think we need to regulate the rentals in the town? I know you guys looked at it over the years, I think. Were you on the board then, Gene? I know Charlie was.
I would like to see them regulated. I have a question about these outside companies. If they're coming in to implement the program, will they also monitor it, or will they hand it over to us once it has been implemented?
No, they would run the program. You know, we would work with them to come up with a whole lot of details involved. You know, what are you going to look at during your inspection? You know, what kind of time frame do you have to correct the problems? So, but no, their people would physically go out and do the inspections and do the paperwork and, you know, work it that way. And you're not hiring more people, potential benefits, workers' comp, all that kind of stuff. I think it's better to go sub that out.
But we would have to enter into a contract with this company.
Yes.
And I'm wondering about the cost, and is it, you know, within our budget? I'm always
Well,
worried about our
there's going to
budget.
be cost whether, no matter which way you do it, you want to hire 4 or 5 employees, or you want to hire a company, you know, to do this. So-
I'd say, Chip, could you invite one of those groups in and?
Yeah, I haven't contacted them yet. I kind of wanted to figure out exactly or roughly how many
Yeah.
rental properties we had, because that's going to eventually come down to, okay, how much are we going to charge for this? Is that fee going to pay
Yes.
what they're going to charge us for doing that? And I think, you know, if we can't make that work, it's going to be another burden for the taxpayers.
I think we want to step up the quality of our community. These are some of the steps that we have to do. I mean, I don't want to do it. But I think it's, I think we got to do it.
Do we?
Let me ask you something, wait there, because we're still kind of doing.
Sorry. Does this include everything from housing conditions down to grass cutting?
No, I think the grass cutting and stuff like that would still be, you know, with code enforcement in my department. This would strictly be for rental properties. And generally, it only deals with like a single family, a duplex, something with no more than 3 units. It wouldn't involve any apartment complexes. They're managed and we don't have any problems with that.
You know where the problems are, right?
Yeah.
So.
And again, as we've talked about this before, a lot of the problems are the people that are living in these units, not necessarily always the owners of the units. So you can solve some of the problems with this, but you're not going to solve them all. But any complaints that stem from the people who are living in these places, we can't make that go away.
Well, the property owner is ultimately the one who's fined. Correct?
Well, and that's a whole big
So
deal
they-
coming up with how do you find someone?
Well, whatever the punishment is, but
Well,
infraction is, would be against them.
yes,
So ultimately,
What?
it's their job to control the renters
not their renters, their property,
or the property.
just,
Okay.
just the property. We
Just
can't
the
control the
property.
people.
No, I know that, but if a renter is causing havoc and tearing stuff up, and the property owner isn't fixing it, then I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of the complaints we get are not from what they're doing within the property, it's
Oh.
their behavior
Oh, really?
outside. You know,
Okay,
that's what I'm, trying
their
to,
behavior,
yeah, throwing trash, hanging out, the stuff that people complain about. They say, oh, I don't want to go down on Main Street in the evening because of the people that's down there. A lot of those are people that are tenants, and we can't address that. In my department.
Well, listen, we'll get them in here and talk to them. We don't know what they can do and can't do.
that's true.
Yeah, it'll take a little while, but I'll try to get somebody in.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chip.
Thank you.
I know I'm bouncing all over the place, but I'm almost done with my list, but finance department. So we got Steve here. One of the things we touched on a couple meetings ago, and as we're getting into the budget and as we're getting into fingers crossed, we're gonna maybe 4 or 5 years from now, we'll have a tremendous amount of additional funding through all this construction that's going on. My question would be, how much do we keep in the reserve? So I guess what I'd like to direct staff to do is come back to us with an actual number, which you want to see in the water reserve, the sewer reserve, the major facility, if that's considered even a reserve, but most importantly, our rainy day fund. You know, you have a rainy day fund, and a rainy day fund is you spend it when it's raining, right? When things are going where you need it, and we have needed it over the last couple of years. But I also recognize that we have to, in general, we need to keep a certain amount of dollars there, and that should be a priority to fill that amount. But I guess what I'm doing is, when the folks were talking about the water and sewer rates, they were a little bit all over the place. Some municipalities have 3 months worth of billings. Some municipalities keep 6 months worth of billings. In the past, it seemed like we had about a year's worth of billings. And I'm okay with a year's worth of billings, but I just need something to work with. If that makes any sense. You guys okay with that?
I am.
And we'd like to see that sooner than later. And I know the water and sewer side, we probably will gain as we're moving through that study. I know we kind of ended this, but I wanted to bring it up again. Our major facility fees, we as a group, it ends the residential free hookup, residential hookup fees ends on
May 22.
May of 2022. It ends, and as of right now, I think we've all talked about we're going to continue to, or we're actually going to not suspend it, but go back to the normal major facility rates. We talked about doing that. I guess my comment would be with the amount of growth that we're starting to get. And I looked at the major facility fees the other day for last year. Mickey sent us over that note, and we budgeted about $150,000 in major facility fees. And even though we suspended the residential fees, we collected over $800,000 in major facility fees. So something there is working. I don't know exactly what it is.
We
But
don't
to
waive
me-
commercial. You're not waiving commercial.
We're not waiving
That's
commercial.
where you get your money.
And that was nice. It doesn't matter to me if it's coming from commercial or residential. My whole
Where does
point,
that money go?
it goes into the general fund.
I know.
No, it's not general fund, it's special.
Oh, special
And
fund.
it's used for growth and development of infrastructure, or improving infrastructure
So it does.
to subsidize the growth. That's what it's for.
Okay, that's what I thought it did, and then I was
That's correct.
Does dredging,
water and sewer.
does dredging fall under the category of infrastructure?
I think we got that clarified. I thought that bulkheading and all that could have been included.
That's not from major facility fees. Would be that.
Are you talking about ARPA or the major facility?
Major facility funds.
Yeah, that would be water and
No.
sewer.
Building
That's
bridges.
all general fund stuff there.
How about ARPA? Does it fall under that?
No, I don't think.
I think it was water and sewer. Mayor, Patriots Landing is coming back in again off Muddy Lane. We've had a traffic impact study scoping meeting with them. They'll be bringing those 100 units in soon.
That's wonderful.
1.5 million in hookup fees.
What do you think the projected outcome of the road study could be? I mean, that's a terrible road.
The scoping study, we talked about the intersections that would have to be studied. They did a traffic impact study in 2007. And there probably hasn't been a lot of change except for the Free State Business Park is under construction now. The only person that they didn't invite to the meeting, unfortunately, was the representative from the county, since it's a county road. So they're going to go back to the county and make sure there's no comments from the county. But this project was approved and ready to go to final a number of years ago. Unless the county has something new with the roads or if the traffic counts, I don't believe the traffic counts have changed much. And of course, COVID kind of dampened that too with having in-home, people working from home and the schools closed and everything. So,
Listen, it's all good stuff.
yeah.
All good stuff. I guess kind of lastly, do you have any questions for Chip or Jean? Is it going to wrap those up? The chief has made out pretty good over there. We haven't had anything for her yet. The HR department, Andy, glad to have you on board, and I know you're getting your feet wet a little bit, and I really appreciate you wanting to meet with the board a little bit one-on-one to understand where our thoughts are. You didn't have to do that, but we really appreciate you doing that. And there's a few things that came out of some of our conversations. You mind me sharing them?
No, I don't mind.
Okay, what's that? No, it can hang. Because this is what I'm getting ready to talk about does affect one of the things on the Department of Public Works list. One of the things that we said when our HR director is going to be on board, we wanted to do a salary study for non-police personnel. And we wanted to get that moving. Because over the years, what we've done is not only, we don't want to create compression, of course. We've been pretty good about giving cost of living every year the best that we could do. But we wanted to make sure that we got to be competitive. There's a lot of things getting ready to happen. We want to make sure that we're competitive. And I'll add to that with the chief. I know that we had talked about recruitment for sworn officers. And I think that we have to move on that. Maybe, I don't know if Andy would take a look at that or bring that, how do we do that? But we need to get that moving also. I mean, we're nowhere close on sworn officers. And right now, how many are we down right now, Chief?
We're down 7, and I have 2 slated that has to retire at the end of October.
So we got 2 retiring, and how many within the next year we got retiring, or 2 years?
Well, 2 that are in the drop program that have to leave. I have a lot that are eligible with the new 20-year retirement, and then
Okay.
at least 3 others that are in the drop program that have probably, I think, like 3 years left.
Okay. So we want to work and get that, because I think we're ready to implement these things. I'd like to have it for the budget hearing, we're starting the budgeting process, and once again, it's gonna be where do we find the money at? And I know that's what Steve and Lewis is looking at me about. But I think that we have to figure out how we can get and maintain we want to show our commitment to our team. And we want to make sure that we're competitive. You guys feel that way? And
Absolutely.
you're on the spot. Of course you're gonna say yes. Of course, we're all gonna say yes.
Can you say something there?
Yeah.
So Kathy is really working on a proposal for the wage scale for non-police officers, and also understand she's worked with HR also on a proposal. But as far as non-personnel, I also want to take a look at not only the current wage scale, what is going to be competitive with, as opposed for changing that, but also we have to look at the minimum wage every year progressively going up to $15 an hour. And that's going to be, that is going to be a competitive market. My sister used to own an ice cream shop in Chesapeake City, and she actually had it closed down because she couldn't afford paying the increasing minimum wage in Maryland. So she shut that down and sold it. So, but that's for the town of Elkton, and we have to look at, consider that, yeah, we can adjust the wage scale for the proposal now, but I'm going to suggest a long-term plan along with minimum wage and how that affects, rippling effect all the way up to all positions on the wage scale, realistic proposal for every year that minimum wage goes up and how that affects all positions and how that predict what it's going to do to the labor market and how we can stay competitive. Because not only are you competitive in this area, but because your locality, you're competitive to Delaware, of course, and neighboring states. So I know that the police departments, because I have contacts in the state police of Delaware and Wilmington Police, they are struggling too, Chief,
I know,
tremendously.
I know,
And a lot of their pay rates are higher.
much higher, and a lot of sign-on bonuses and different
Right.
things.
So we have to figure out unique ways, not only salaries need to be looked at, but we also have to consider a total package as far as what other type of niceties or benefits that we can include with just, besides the salaries for the police department. But for non-police, I would also consider the board to consider that we have an initial plan maybe this year, but also a long-term plan that coincides with the minimum wage progressive hike every year to the point where it's going to be $15 an hour.
Mhm. Well, listen, I'm on board with that. I think everyone's done on the board with that. We want to make sure that
Yeah, $15 an hour is a lot of money.
we have to be competitive. I think we're right on board with it.
Thank you.
Now, the one thing that has always been near and dear to this board's heart, and we're going to kind of look at maybe Lou and yourself to do it, is valuations of employees. I think that we've always given I think the department heads have looked at everybody and kind of moved them from point A to point B. But we want to make sure that there's some type of formal evaluation for our employees. I know we talk about it all the time, but we need to implement it. We could change, we got an election coming up. This board could change, which means staff could change. So we need to implement things in place so that we're all on the same page with that.
Not me this time.
Sharon, I will tell you that the police department's program for evaluations, I find very impressive, where they have 2 a year. And they don't really, for non-police, they don't necessarily have to be formal appraisals.
We actually are starting to implement the formal appraisals, and we've done it with everyone except for the police secretary and administrative staff.
That's great.
But we have done it for the office associates up front.
That's
We
awesome.
did just start that this year, so they're getting an appraisal. But the police, any sworn is done twice a year.
Twice a year. I mean, that's a terrific program. In the HR world, they have these things called stay interviews. Besides formal appraisals as far as going over the performance of the employee, but it could be an opportunity for the supervisor, department head, to find out from the employee, how are we serving you? Are we meeting your goals? What can we do to continue to have you as part of our family? And a time where we can ask them, what can we do for them, and maybe just set some goals on both sides, not only for the employee, but for the department head and supervisor. This is what I can do for you, and I need you to work on this. And then maybe a formal appraisal. Because appraisals are very, it's not an uneasy, it's an uneasy topic when you're judging another person, and so it can be very uncomfortable. That's why sometimes, managers tend to not want to do them. And employees tend not to want to receive them unless they're really great. But there are different ways we can go about it where we can kind of seek some type of balance. But I do like the 2 check-ins a year. And I think that it would be great for that to kind of transcend over to the other side as well. And I will talk to the department heads close to see if that's something we can possibly implement in the next year or so.
But in the final end, evaluations must be made regardless of whether you see them, regardless of the department head, because that's the job.
Correct.
Sometimes you don't want to do them, but you gotta tell the truth of it.
That's
Period.
true. You're right, Commissioner. You're exactly right. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Well, and that's the struggle that we have, is making sure that they are, ours are still, I feel like we still need to tweak ours, because ours are pretty subjective. They only talk about certain primary tasks, and then it's kind of everything else is sort of left up. So I want to work with HR to try and make sure we have really good evaluations that are giving good, honest feedback to our employees. And, we do try to make sure that when we have those conversations, we're asking what they want, because job satisfaction is huge. It's not going to be all about pay and benefits. So.
A lot of times your employees will have fallacy, but as you said, Dan, the way the form is written, you want to do something to make them still welcoming to the job site as well, help them as they move forward.
Right.
Now, will you help our department heads transition into this?
Well, we got to work as a team. It has to be a collective, and we all have to, look at it different. Kathy has a pretty good appraisal form that she had already set up. Maybe it needs to be looked at the department heads again to see if that will, if they're all in agreement. But I want to work with them as a team to get that worked out, and I'm really enjoying my discussions with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Good job.
Thank you.
One of the other things that I don't want to steal your thunder, but I was really impressed. I don't want to get into any detail on this at this point, but Andy showed me an app that I think will be a nice, beautiful benefit for our employees if we can get to that level. It's basically your HR on an app.
Yep.
And it'll be able to tell you everything about you personally. You got to sign in. It's yours, and I think it'll go a long way in this town. I really do. Anyone that has a smartphone will be able to take a look and see what their benefit package is. They'll understand what their co-pays are. They'll understand the whole game plan.
Mayor, you just took my surprise. I was going to share that with the department yesterday, so you just kind of ruined my surprise.
You already turned it on to them yesterday?
No, I didn't. I was going to talk to them tomorrow.
Well, you should have told me to. You should have told me to. X.
No, I can't do that.
You could have. Well, listen, you're going to do the presentation with them more. The other thing that I just wanted to make sure that we have enough of, I know they're very difficult to come, is COVID test kits. Do we have COVID test kits in the building?
No.
We should try our best to make sure we have those. I think that should be part of the protocol. If anyone's feeling ill, maybe we, I know they can be expensive. They're 2 for $25 if you can find them.
They're a big demand there right now.
But we should do our best to have those for the next variant, let's say. But I think it's something important to have. They've also talked about changing the mask requirements. I mean, I think all of us have used cloth masks and everything. Quite frankly, I think that everyone in here, we should be able to get N95 masks now.
We have KN95.
KN95 is fine. I think
We don't
that,
have 95, N95.
I think that if you're gonna wear them, make sure you're wearing the proper mask. I'm not a big mask guy, I'm gonna tell you that, but I'm just saying, if you're gonna use them, use the real deal.
Can I say something about the N95 mask?
Yeah.
Because I came from healthcare, so we had some of the facilities that actually used N95 masks. It's a really, involved process. OSHA actually has to come in with a special team to make sure there's no leakage around the mask. It's a mask, there's a filter inside. So they are good masks, but it can be pretty involved and expensive.
I would say to you that, my other job, I'm 3M rep.
Oh, that's right.
And I have performed more fit testing for respiratory than maybe anyone on the East Coast.
Okay.
And to say to you that you're 100% right. If you got any facial hair, I'm not supposed to fit test you, but I will say this. Our application here isn't a OSHA required. You don't need to wear the N95 to perform your job.
Okay.
You're not drilling holes, you're not cutting into mortar or into silicone, but we are gonna, if you're gonna require masks, we might as well use better masks.
Yes.
That
So
was
you
my
want
comment.
the KN95?
It can be the KN or it can be an N, I mean, I would just say that make sure everyone's wearing the right. They make them, like you said, they make them in different colors now, black, gray, whatever. That's your call. Okay, so look, I'm moving right along. Thank you, Andy. We keep stumbling with armory use. You know, we talk about this all the time, and I just want to I want the board to kind of give some direction, maybe at the next meeting or two, give it some thought. Do we want to open up this armory as a facility for the public, or do we want to keep it as a facility for ourselves for record keeping? It doesn't matter to me. I just want to know what we want to do with it.
Basement is full of records.
It's full of records, that's
So
correct.
You can't have public.
Can't have anything downstairs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
left is the drill hall.
Well, the bottom line is with that not being an open-ended question, if you're saying to us, we want it for the public, then what would be the uses for the public? And then if you want it for us, what uses would we have? That way we can come up with a soluble answer. I know it's just said, as you said, the records he was saying was downstairs.
and there's
So whether you have
well, you have the gymnasium,
right.
and I know there's some leaking of the roof and so forth. Is that what you were going to tell us?
No, there's some other considerations. There's a lot of lead paint in there, which only becomes an issue if you're gonna have young kids in there in a daycare situation. So, I mean, almost everything, all the paint on the walls, the drill hall, the paint on the beams, the paint on the ceiling, it's all lead.
Well, let's table that then for right now.
Can it be redone, or does it have to be?
It should be extremely expensive. Yeah, anything can be done. I mean,
Does it
you're
even
looking-
paint it?
It has to be more than just painted.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you cover?
Remember years ago, they had like a festival of trees in there, and how nice it was. It was beautiful. I mean, is something like that doable today? Just something where people go in for the evening, or is there heat? Is there air conditioning?
There's really no heat in the drill hall that you could use. There's these fans up in the ceiling that the steam runs through. You turn those on and you can't hear yourself think.
Wow.
There's no air conditioning, so it's really
The
terrible.
military was there. They don't get luxuries.
Yeah.
Being an ex-military person.
I thought it would be
a lot of air
a
conditioning.
good roller rink.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of, okay, I want to touch base on that before you adjourn.
What's that?
You were gonna do an ice rink.
I'd love to have an ice rink.
You
We don't-
dropped the ball.
I didn't drop the ball. I have an officer that was going to give me additional information.
I know she's been looking into it, I just don't know.
Yeah, she doesn't have all the information. So let me continue. One of the things that has been near and dear to me, and I believe that we're still doing the directive, but it's the homelessness that is in our parks in our community that were there over the years. I think we're doing a pretty good job of going through each and every area that belongs to the town of Elkton and just make sure that there's no one camping out on the properties. The only reason I'm bringing that up, I know behind Friendship where we had some folks that were staying along the Big Elk Creek prior to, every once in a while, I see some TP smoke signals that are going down the creek and you can smell it, smell the smoke. And I'm just always worried that could be a fire that could burn away, be hard to get to. So I guess what I'm asking, let's continue to use compassion with our homeless in our community and figure out a way, if there is any. I don't even know if there is any. I haven't seen any in the neighborhoods, but we have some other town lands that behind Holly Hall, I don't know if not Holly Hall, behind Elkwood Estates. I don't know if we've driven in that area in a while, but that's between Whitehall Road and Holly Hall. We own all that land through there. And I was told at one time there were some people in that area. But maybe just take a look. The leaves are down. It's a little bit easier to see everybody. I want to make, I would like to ask everyone to take a look at our committees and our boards, our town boards, and evaluate. Let's kind of evaluate, and we'll need help from staff on this. And let us know if any board member has had a lot of absences that need to be replaced, or you think that they're unhappy and we could, I don't have an issue of asking anyone to step down in that situation if they're unhappy. I don't want them to think that they're committed to a 4-year term or a 5-year term, but take a look at that for us and report back to us if we could. I want us to evaluate our security systems around town. We started this infrastructure on Main Street with cameras, and I quite frankly, I think it's been a wonderful thing. I think it's hindered a lot of the stuff that we had going on about 4 or 5 years ago. I'd love to continue that all the way down Main Street. I'd love to continue it down Landing Lane. I'd love to continue it down Road A and B. And when I say that, that's infrastructure. Now, am I right or wrong? I don't know. I would think I would call that infrastructure.
I think one of the things you have to consider here, and I'm sure Chief Rogers will comment, is that you can put more and more cameras up, but how are they monitored?
You're 100% correct. And the purpose of this would not be to monitor the cameras. The purpose would be if there was an issue, we would know to where to get the information.
Access them. Yeah. I will share with you that I'm meeting with Jessica Price tomorrow afternoon because she has found some kind of community security grant. And it could be, I think, up to $100,000 for some things like that. So if that's one of the priorities, that could be something I can have her look at if we're looking at
safety. I think the perception, I think it helps. I really believe it helps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we know it helps. And then
I can tell you it was nice when we've had some of these more serious crimes in town that we've actually gone through and go to businesses and residences. And it's nice when we have that resource too, that we're able to go back and look. It helps us to track maybe where a suspect went or came from. So it is helpful anytime you get video footage.
For $100,000, we could put a Ring doorbell on every residence in the town of Elkton. And not to pay for the service for them, but what it would do is that if there was a crime or an issue, we know how that Ring works. It's actually been a pretty good system. I've enjoyed mine. Chief, do you think we need any call boxes throughout the town? Now, it sounds a little, when I say that, most people have cell phones today, and that's their call box. My question would be down by the tennis courts, down by maybe in Meadow Park somewhere. Would there be a need? Does that, in colleges they have call boxes to where if a person feels like someone's following them or threatening them, they will open that call box. Now, it may cause more problems than it would help, but just give it some thought.
every person 10 years and above has a cell phone.
Yeah, and I would say we have really good coverage in town in almost every area.
I'm-
So if we were dealing with some sketchy cell service, then I
Yeah.
would say maybe there would be a greater need for that. Yeah.
But you have Verizon, AT&T.
I agree with you. I mean, I'm just throwing some things out for security. I
Yeah.
always thought, you know, a few years ago, we had that, person that was chased down in the Big Elk Mall. And, I always thought, well, okay, now maybe if there was something there she could have ran to, because her phone's in her purse. I don't know. Just take a look at it. Now, I'm gonna go to the, a couple of things here. I had of course, I think there's no question, everyone on this board is trying to figure out a way that we can provide some long-term funding and some short-term funding to our fire department in the town of Elkton. We just got the final rule on the ARPA money, and there is some language in there which we're still understanding and trying to understand if we can do it or can't do it. And I'm okay with waiting till you give us a final answer, if we can do that or not. But I think moving forward, I looked into our charter, and currently our funding is 0.012, which is 1 2/5.
2 cents.
Two,
One
One and two.
2 cents,
yes,
which is pretty on,
on every $100 of assessed value. Now, that was implemented in May 16th, 1979. Now, there was one amendment that was changed after the state went from the 40% assessment to the 100%.
3 cents on the 40% evaluation, but the state, I think Steve said it was 2001, they converted from 40% of fair market value to 100%. So we had to change from 0.03 to 0.012 cent, which equates to the same amount of money you generate from those assessments.
That's correct.
So the only increase in money actually received by Singular Fire Company is from the change in assessments. As assessments went up, obviously they would get more money, and the latest money was $144,702, not counting the 5,000 something in payments money.
That is correct.
So every time the assessment goes up, they get more money, but the method by which they receive that money or calculated or determined, however you look at it, has not changed since I can remember, since I've been in this.
Well, I'll use 1979. So $100 in 1979, when this rate was in the charter, is equivalent to about $400 today. So,
I was gonna say, it's got 3 or 4 times. more.
yeah, it's 4 times. It actually is a little over 4 times. It's about 420. If you put it in there, what's $100 worth today? That was in 1979. It'll come out to about $425. So let's use.
But the houses, the assessments went up too, because your housing value went up too.
They have gone up a long way.
It wasn't the fault of-
So I'm going to just make the board aware that my goal is over the next 6 or 7 years, just like we did with our police vehicles, I'd like to be able to figure out how we can increase that percentage up to almost 0.048%. So I want to 4 times it, but we got some time. I want to do it not today, not tomorrow, but I want to look at a plan in place to be able to increase that by, let's say, fiscal year 28 or fiscal year 29. That number could be at 0.48. And then with all the additional building around, including the Southfields property, the Patriots Landing properties, and all these sites, that should be able to be pretty darn close to about $1 million a year of funding for the Singerly Fire Company. Now, is that too much? Is that too little? But I can say this, it's going to be a lot more than the $144,000 that you're doing today. Now, we may or may not agree with this. I'm just throwing it out there. We don't need to make any adjustments today. But I want to let everyone know that's the plan that I'm looking forward to doing. With that, I think I hit everything on my list. Gene, you have anything? Sure. Yeah, I think so.
I know, thank you. That was a lot more than I was anticipating and it was perfect, it was wonderful. You hit on so many things that, some things I forgot about, to be honest with you. Just touching base back on Sanger Lake Fire Company. I mean, I'm not a member of the fire company. I have no investment, but I wholeheartedly believe that if we don't do something, we're gonna end up having to run it in the town. It just worries me, it does. I can see them at some point not making it as an independent, volunteer service, because it's really not that much volunteer anymore. Anyway, so anything that we can do to be proactive, I'm all for it. I did read through your Reader Digest version that you gave us. I did read through it.
All right.
And I found maybe 3 or 4 things that really piqued my interest. So I'm not going to read them now, but they specifically talk about nonprofits and fire companies. And I'm sure you know, some of you have read the same thing as I did. So I would like to pursue it. And actually, I think my personal goal would be to do what you just laid out, but a little sooner. In some degree, it doesn't have to be that high, because $1 million a year is, in conjunction with their continued efforts, maybe too much. I don't know. That's something we have to touch base with them on, but I'm all for moving forward so that the town of Elkton and the residents don't get.
Well, let me ask you specifically, with the ARPA funding, what dollar amount were you kind of thinking, to buy them an ambulance or give them funding for
At
ambulance?
this point,
Yeah.
right now, if I had a wish list, I'd probably seriously think about $1 million. I would.
The, as a 501c3 corporation, which they are, they may qualify for ARPA funding relating to loss of revenue that they've experienced based on the health crisis. But there's no provision in ARPA to buy them physical equipment. You can't buy them a fire engine, but you can support, because in the thing that you read, they probably said buying fire equipment, but that's if the government operates the fire department.
And
we
that
don't
takes
operate
us-
the fire department.
You're right, and I thought of that, but doesn't that take us back to the charter at some point?
I'm not sure what you mean.
That we're responsible, or that we're almost like a coexisting entity of some sort?
The part of the
That's all
charter
I
that
know.
says
We
that
just
the town
contribute
pays
money
for
to
it.
Well, the charter states that our money's for maintenance and equipment.
Yeah, well, we contribute money for that, but you have to do it through your charter.
Okay, but aren't
Not
we,
through
we're
federal
responsible
funds.
for the health, safety, and welfare too? I mean, that's the primary thing that we are responsible for.
And if they lost revenue based on the health
Right.
crisis,
Yes,
then you maybe have to subsidize that,
yes.
but you can't buy them a $1 million fire.
Well, I don't care what they do. I mean, that's their
You get a
call.
soul and tow.
Okay. So, no, I just wanted to support your thinking on that.
I guess where I looked at, and I jotted this down here, on page 61 of the final rule, and it talks about the purchase of ambulances, it's actually spelled out. And I understand what you're saying, that's if they were an entity of
Town,
the,
they were a department.
but I didn't see that in there. On the abbreviated sheet, but in this big sheet, and I want you guys, when you guys are making notes, have you read the whole document, or you feel pretty comfortable doing it?
I'm reading what you're reading because I was looking for fire company stuff in there.
Okay,
And what I've concluded from reading that is that rather than the 437-page document, which I've read pieces of, that the loss of revenue is probably the one area that we could subsidize them.
and they lost $120,000 is what they told me. They had
They
that
lost
document
what?
in COVID money last year.
Huh?
120,000 was what they lost. Yeah, that was the number they told me. I was looking for it here on my notes, but I can't.
As long as we're moving forward with this, and if there's a way, I'd certainly be happy to entertain a decision on something.
Yeah. Anything else, Gene?
I think I'm good.
Charles?
I don't have anything of major concern other than the fact that, Andy, again, welcome, and hope you can, fix some wrong with some right as you come aboard as the, human resource person. And I noticed here that, Public Works sent a statement out to us, and it's good information. And I see where they have recruitment, but I would think that also should come under your umbrella. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you want to be on target, even though they have whatever. So I guess whatever hire there is in the town of Elkton, you will be committed to be there with that, or does the department do that as you see it, a separate entity?
We should be working in tandem with each other, Commissioner. So I will definitely, I have the human resource staffing policy here, actually provided by Kathy to me yesterday.
Well, whether it's that or the police department or hiring a building,
Yes.
I'm saying that should fall under your umbrella of everything that needs to be done as far as the hiring process goes in the town of Elkton.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I need
Thank you.
to know, thank you.
And the one thing you want to keep in mind is the police have a different process in terms of hiring.
Louis, I understand that. My question is, will it be under his umbrella? So whatever they know, he should know.
Well, they will.
Other than something, other person, you're missing my question. You got a human resource person, everything the town of Elkton comes under his umbrella. I understand the personal things that they do with the police department, and certainly that should be so, because there's a lot of private things. But I'm saying he should know everything that happens in the town of Elkton. Do you understand my question?
Do you understand that, Andy, that you're in charge of everything?
Didn't say charge of everything. I said the knowledge of everything. If you left right now and you retired today or tomorrow, they should be able to go to him and find out what's happening out. Who they gonna go to? When you know something about the police chief, is he to go to there and say, well, when did you hire somebody? But if he's there, he's got all that information there. Even if somebody were to replace you, they need to know something, they could go to him. It's nothing difficult in what I'm saying. It's a matter of understanding that we want to be partners as we move forward. I'm done.
Thank you, sir. There was two other things I had.
I got a quick one.
And I haven't even let the chief speak yet. John, since we differ, since I'm kind of differing on my opinion with Lou on what I'm reading, can you make sure you review that 432-page document and tell me that, look specifically at the fire side and report back to Lou? You don't have to report to us, just report to Lou. And if Lou's 100% right, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I'm just asking another set of eyes. Thank you.
And with that, it goes to show the partnership again. John to show Louis something, Louis to have it, John to have it. So if it's available to somebody somewhere, if one of you were to go away, whatever, somebody still has it, town of Elkton still has it, and access to know what happened. Points well taken, I'm done again.
One of the things that I don't think was clear from Sam Boldwater was the fact how the fire company purchases equipment. And the reason I mentioned that, I don't know if they go spend $1 million for a piece of equipment or they go through this process of debt service, where they buy it over time and then they pay $100,000 a year for it or whatever. So I don't know how they do that, because $144,702 that we give them, plus it'll be greater each year, will pay debt service on several pieces of equipment, I can imagine.
I think you're
right.
right.
No, they couldn't lay out the capital costs of every piece of equipment up front.
I don't think they do either, Lou, and I think it was in, I'm looking for that presentation that I had saw. It had, I used to have their pie chart. And I was gonna look and see if the pie chart had debt service in it, which I'm sure it does.
The reason I mentioned that, because you can give them money to buy equipment from the town directly and the fund, and to help pay their debt service on that equipment. They keep mentioning, we need $1 million ambulance, we need $1 million engine, all that. Well, we wouldn't have, nobody would have that kind of money to give our department, but they would have allocated money for debt service on equipment.
Yeah, you're correct. Now, when I'm looking here as a revenue, I didn't see anything on expenses, but I'll ask for that.
Okay.
But you're spot on with that. I mean, if we could provide the debt service on that, that's a win.
Absolutely, that's how they could purchase equipment from our contribution.
I was thinking 500.
Yeah.
Just to get them through the COVID portion that has impacted them and people.
Very good. Earl, your turn.
I think I'm good.
Robert?
You're taking notes on me.
That's where my 45 minutes comes from.
All right.
I'm glad that we're pursuing an avenue to help the fire department. I think they need it. I think it's a very worthy cause, obviously. I wish that we could help the police department a little more. Several officers have spoken to me, and it seems to be their wish that not so much a raise is the most important thing, but benefits. If we can provide that, that would be awesome. That's a huge undertaking, I understand.
You've got the best in the country.
But, yeah,
I'm
we do.
not
and
really
it's-
sure what you're talking about. Mr. I think we do have a really good benefits package, unless you're talking about health insurance after
Yes,
retirement.
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, sorry, I should have
And-
specified.
okay. Yeah,
But that's exactly what I'm talking about. I wish that we could find a way to.
and I can appreciate that, and being on the probably latter end of my career, I can absolutely appreciate that sentiment. But I also am looking at, as far as the salary, staying competitive all the way through and in each rank, and then particularly though, in helping me in recruitment.
Well, that's where I got this information from. I was talking to them and I said, I would love to get you guys raises to be more competitive with some of the other municipalities around here. And they said, I don't need to mention names, but they were like, yeah, we'd rather have health insurance than the raise. Which of
Well,
course-
and I think you gotta be a little bit careful about who you talk to and where they are in their career too, because sometimes as employees, we can get a little bit short-sighted and only see what's gonna benefit us in the here and now. So I can understand it and I appreciate that. I think that's something that they need to pursue through the collective bargaining contract and work on that if that's something they really want to pursue. And when I actually made my presentation, I think I referenced the fact that you wouldn't see me come before you for another pay increase for sworn personnel, simply because you guys do have they do have that avenue to negotiate with you. I just felt like it was unprecedented time, something that maybe had been, you look at how the pay increases has gone up. I know we talk about the minimum wage going up, but if you look at somebody like Amazon, and even I think Five Guys here in town is advertising $18 an hour to start. I mean, that's local in town. That's, when we talk about our current starting salary for law enforcement, it's just over $20 an hour. So
Yes.
when
They're
you're
putting the
looking
eyes on
at,
mine.
right, so that's kind of where I'm looking at for you guys saying, yeah, I know they need to negotiate for their own benefits and pay, because that's the avenue that they wanted to take, and you guys agree with it, and I'm all for that, support it wholeheartedly. I'm just looking at, I feel are at a critical juncture in law enforcement right now with 7 vacancies, 2 pending vacancies that I know of. Who knows what else can happen? I've got one out on a long-term medical who's getting ready to come in on light duty for us, so hopefully that will sustain them and they'll be able to come back to full duty. But all of these things happen, and then you throw in the pandemic, and you've got several people out, including myself just recently. I'm just looking at, we need short-term to get people here and keep the ones that we have for right now. So that's why when I talk about salaries, that's where my focus is right now, and I think that's really where the need is. I understand and appreciate the post-retirement health benefits. I'm not trying to minimize that.
Well, I very much appreciate your input. That's very helpful. But this is kind of a wish list thing, and I did promise the officers that I'd bring it up at the meetings, so.
No,
I've done it. I fully would support a raise because we do need to be competitive. We're 7 officers down, and it's hard to get them, especially nowadays. God bless everyone.
And
who
quality,
decides to stay.
quality, let me emphasize quality.
Quality. Yeah, I
Quality.
understand
You
that.
get, you
too.
get what you pay for.
The only other thing I have is that I met with Andy Rodriguez this morning, our new HR director. I was very impressed. I'm very hopeful for a future with him. He seems to, like the rest of us, have his heart and mind in the best possible spot. And I'd like to welcome you aboard and thank you for all of your vision that you shared with me this morning.
Carolyn, as you go, at a critical junction we are now, and you have dire needs, are you really looking ahead now to look at what I'm gonna have just in case this happens? Or have you talked to other police agencies, because a lot of them are in the same straits? And sometimes, talking with others, you try to capture ideas and
Absolutely.
innovative ways, because it's obviously tough with what you have to deal with and what others have to deal with as well.
Absolutely, and I've kind of been screaming this for the last year. I'm saying, we've got to get people hired, and we're dedicating some people to that we have, but we just did another floor board yesterday morning. We're trying to get people, we're trying to do backgrounds on top of everything else that we have going on. I know that everybody, Andy here talked about Delaware State Police, Wilmington Police have the same issues. Maryland State Police, they're having the exact same issues. They're reducing on what they respond to. Their minimum manpower has decreased. The number of people. That's why we're all really trying to work together. We work consistently. There's on almost any given day, you're going to find somebody from the Maryland State Police criminal enforcement unit over in our department working with us, because they're short-staffed. We're short-staffed together. We know we can a force multiplier when we work together, and we can do that. And it's all about officer safety too. But absolutely, we're getting to the point where I'm worried about officers really wanting to leave, and if we get too much more short-staffed, I'm worried about some of those that are eligible to retire, that maybe weren't thinking about retiring, maybe retiring. We might have to reduce some services that we're doing. We still respond out on every single call that we get. And we're doing everything that we can to do that. I'm not trying to minimize what our officers are doing. They're showing up every day. They're doing really good work. Even just with this most recent homicide, they've got a suspect in jail for that. They are that. And I believe that was part of the message that came from Lewis when we were first talking about the state of the town and things that we're doing. That takes a lot of resources to do that. It takes my entire criminal investigation division several days to do that. And then, now we've got an arrest, but there's still a lot of things that have to be done. There's still a lot of reports that have to be filed. And that doesn't stop with the other cases that are coming in. So yeah, we're looking ahead, and that's why I say I'm not exaggerating when I say I'm a little worried.
I like to have a comment here also, because as Carolyn made, I don't know if she ever explained to the board that the officers once had protection of law enforcement officers' bill of rights. And I think that that law was rescinded.
Yeah, as of July of this year, that will no longer be in place. I think I mentioned it briefly in one of my presentations.
And there's a new process in place now for officers that are charged with, a dereliction of duty or excessive deadly force or whatever. That's much more complex. It involves citizens and everything. And those types of things that affect an officer in many ways when they see other officers going through things. And that's a little different than, it's not all Adam 12 anymore. It's much more
There's actually
complicated.
laws out there now that if an officer is found guilty of certain things, they're going to take away their pension. So these are things that as people are nearing who are eligible, because there are many that are eligible now, over 20-year, 25-year, they're eligible for retirement. All of these other things start playing in the back of their mind. You know, this could happen to me, and the more we are short-staffed, the more at risk it puts everyone, the community, our officers, everyone. So, yeah, there's a lot to come into play. I can do so much as a leader in trying to steer the ship, and your support, just in we appreciate what you do. Just saying that and knowing it's coming from your heart means a lot. Knowing you're going to support the officers in their decisions and the judgments that they have to make day in and day out. That is huge, because that's not happening all across the country. So, you know, every time the public says, thank you, good job, we appreciate this, we support you, we trust you. We trust you. We want the community's trust. All of that means a lot to these people. So yeah, benefits pay are great. It's just one part of it, and one of the reasons that they do it.
So you feel the more important thing here would be a raise?
Right now, it's salaries.
I would agree, raise, and then looking down on commissioner for benefits on top of that, you know,
Yeah.
that's important also, but when I looked at the wage scale, I was honestly really shocked.
Yeah, me too, when I heard about it.
Very good. I did have two other things. Luke, where do we stand with the water tower? I think we just got the deed back, or we got the
I'm
deed?
waiting for Ada and Perry's office to call me and say if we have the deed recorded. I think he came over, I took a check down to him right away.
Okay,
Because she said they usually wait for a check, and I sent her a response that I was shocked that they didn't trust the town of Elkton to make payment. But anyway, I had Diana make a check, and I took it down, gave it to
Perfect.
Ada. And she took it. She's already brought it over here and had it stamped. So I know it went over to the clerk's office to be recorded. So
nice.
it's just a matter of them.
However much time it takes. And then the last thing, where do we stand at with the second interconnect? Has there been any?
Analysis on
Yes.
the Route 40 interconnect with Artesian, I'm expecting next week.
Okay, so we're still
I've been
waiting for.
Periodically checking with Legie, and she's gonna get that to me next week.
Perfect.
I'll share with the board.
Perfect. Because I do owe Artesian a phone call, and I kind of wanted to know where we're
Yeah,
at.
we'll get that next week.
Perfect. Well, this was a workshop, and really no business has been conducted, and meeting adjourned.